Now, she's a law and criminal legal analyst. Dina, thank you for coming onto the program.
Thank you for having me.
The reaction is as expected. Your thoughts here on the verdict coming out, not guilty on all counts?
You know, watching the trial, it was not that surprising, the verdict, because Kyle Rittenhouse himself made actually a very good witness. Whether or not you like him, whether or not you agree with what he did, the jury only had to find that he reasonably believed he needed to use lethal force to protect him from lethal force. And as he came across on the witness stand, he handled himself well in cross-examination. That was essentially the crux of the defense's argument, and it was enough to sway the jury.
Yeah, it certainly was. And there was a number of other elements, whether they played a role or they didn't play a role, because as you say, that was really key there for the defense. The judge throwing out the charge that Rittenhouse was carrying a deadly weapon illegally, saying that was sort of one of the big chances, of course, for the prosecution to get a conviction, but also a number of things for, during the trial. The judge remanding the prosecution, the juror being dismissed over racist jokes, calling the victims rioters and looters. The judge's cell phone going off during the examination, playing, former President Donald Trump's rally theme song, Rittenhouse as well, being able to draw names for jurors. All of those elements there, was this then just, the only option would have been, or the only obvious outcome would have been, a not guilty verdict?
I don't think this was predetermined.
Okay.
A lot was made about some of the judge's actions. I think a lot of them, although they drew too much attention to him, kind of made him a character in this, they were not so prejudicial.
Okay.
I mean, I think actually him having them applaud one of the witnesses because he was a veteran before he took the stand, it was a defense witness, that maybe did affect the jury, but his reprimanding the prosecutor was actually something most judges would have done, because what the prosecutor did in that moment, he introduced evidence that was excluded, was actually a really big no-no for prosecutors. So on the whole, I don't think actually the judge's actions was, determined this outcome here. I really think the evidence at the end of the day, the prosecution, in order to overcome this self-defense, had to show that Rittenhouse provoked this event and then was able to retreat, and he didn't. I think that was, the problem with this case is people saw this as, he went into this fist fight with a gun, as the prosecution said. But with all the different video, clearly the prosecution just couldn't prove that he provoked it, he pointed the gun, and that he was able to retreat, and he didn't. If the prosecution had come up with that, I think they could have gotten a victory despite anything the judge may have said or done.
But what happens here now? Because justice still hasn't been served. 2 people have died. Their families are mourning their loss, and they've not received any sort of closure that, of course, they would be looking for. So where do things go from here? And I guess it also comes down to the messaging that this case puts forward.
I think there might be a few things. In terms of the families themselves, they may likely sue Kyle Rittenhouse. The standard for a civil suit is lower than a criminal. They just would have to prove there is wrongful death with a preponderance of evidence. And we know there's this $2 million bond at stake. Kyle Rittenhouse's family says he should be keeping that money. The lawyer who raised the money for him says the lawyer should keep it. If Kyle Rittenhouse does keep that $2 million, that means there's funds there that the victim's family could go after. Still definitely not, healing them, but at least another legal remedy. And then in terms of a broader implication, I can see there being stricter laws in terms of the curfew. As you said, he illegally went there, during a curfew and brought this gun. We have a felony murder rule in the United States that says if you're in the middle of conducting a felony, such as robbing a bank, and somebody is killed, you are liable for that death. I could see something like that happening. If you bring a gun into this inherently dangerous situation, the city has just mandated a curfew, and you kill somebody, then you're more liable, and they don't have to then go into this idea of, was it reasonable in a moment?
Well, we're going to keep a close eye. We know that Representative Jerry Nadler suggesting the verdict justified a federal review by the Department of Justice. We'll see where that goes from there. And of course, we know, reaction continuing to spill right across the United States. Dina, thank you so much for giving us your analysis on this. Dina Dahl, legal and crime legal analyst. Thank you very much for this.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.